Before we begin, let us know where you're listening from. After the story, rate it from 1 to 10. Now let's start. The winter had been harsher than any Dagmar Yngling had endured in his 30 summers. The bitter cold had claimed his wife 3 years prior, leaving him alone to tend their modest farm on the outskirts of the Norse settlement near the fjord. His reputation as a warrior had faded with the passing seasons, his battle scars now merely reminders of a life once filled with glory and plunder. As the ice finally receded from the shores, and the first brave shoots of green emerged from the thawing earth, Dagmar loaded his small cart with furs and carved bone trinkets. The spring market would bring traders from distant shores, and he needed supplies to survive another year. His once powerful frame remained imposing, though slightly stooped from years of labor. His auburn beard, now streaked with gray, hung down to his chest, braided in the traditional manner of his people. The market bustled with activity. Traders from as far as Miklagard displayed exotic wares while local craftsmen hawked their goods. Jarls and their households paraded in their finest attire, adorned with silver and amber. Dagmar moved quietly through the throng, trading his modest offerings for seeds and salt. It was near the edge of the market where the slave traders gathered that Dagmar saw them. A slender woman with fiery hair stood defiantly, despite the iron collar around her neck. Behind her cowered 2 small girls, no more than 6 winters old, with the same flaming hair. Twins, a rarity considered both blessed and cursed among his people. Celtic stock, the slave trader announced to the gathering crowd. Captured from the Western Isles. The woman is strong, good for field work or warming your bed. The little ones come with her, no separating. Dagmar had not intended to purchase a thrall. His farm was modest, his means limited. Yet something in the woman's eyes, not fear, but a fierce protectiveness, stirred something within him. When no one offered a reasonable price, considering the burden of 2 young mouths to feed, Dagmar stepped forward. "I'll take them," he said, offering the trader his remaining goods and a small silver arm ring, one of the last treasures from his raiding days. The trader eyed the meager payment with contempt but, seeing no better offers forthcoming, grudgingly accepted. "What is your name?" Dagmar asked the woman as he led them away from the market. "Sorcha Galloway," she replied in halting Norse. "These are my daughters, Marin and Brianna." "I am Dagmar Yngling," he responded. "You need not fear me. I require help with my farm, nothing more." The journey to Dagmar's homestead was silent save for the occasional whimper from the exhausted children. The woman, Sorcha, walked with her head high despite her circumstances, occasionally murmuring words of comfort to her daughters in their strange, musical language. Dagmar's farm came into view as they crested a small hill, a modest longhouse with a thatched roof, a small barn for his livestock, and fields waiting to be tilled. Nothing grand, but it was his. "This is where you live?" Sorcha asked, surveying the homestead with wary eyes. "It is where we all live now," Dagmar replied, helping the exhausted children from the cart. That first night, Dagmar gave them the far end of the longhouse, separated by a rough woolen hanging. He could hear Sorcha's soft voice as she sang to her daughters, a strange, mournful melody that carried him back to the sounds he had heard on raids to her homeland, before he had put away his sword and shield. In the morning, Dagmar found Sorcha already awake, attempting to kindle the central hearth fire. Her movements were precise but unfamiliar with the Norse implements. "Your home is different from ours," she said without looking up. "In my village, our roundhouses kept the warmth better." "You speak our tongue well," Dagmar observed, taking over the fire-making. "My father traded with your kind before your people came with axes and torches," she replied, a hint of bitterness in her voice. "He thought it wise that I learn." "And the children's father?" Dagmar asked, immediately regretting the question when he saw the shadow cross her face. "Dead. Killed when your people raided our settlement. I was taken while trying to flee with my daughters." Dagmar nodded solemnly. "I no longer raid. Those days are behind me. Yet you benefit from the misery your people cause," she said, her green eyes flashing with defiance. "Perhaps," he conceded, "but your fate could have been worse. Some of my countrymen are not kind to their thralls. And you? Are you kind, Norseman?" Dagmar considered this. "I am fair. You and your daughters will be fed and sheltered. I will not mistreat you. In time, if you serve well, I may even grant you freedom." A hint of surprise crossed Sorcha's face before she masked it. Then we shall serve well, my daughters and I. The spring planting was hard work, and Dagmar found himself impressed by Sorcha's strength and determination. Though the methods of farming differed from her homeland, she learned quickly and worked from sunrise until sunset. The twin girls, too young for heavy labor, helped in small ways, gathering eggs from the hens, feeding the goats, and learning to card wool. As the days lengthened, Dagmar noticed changes in his household. The longhouse, once barren and utilitarian, now held small touches of comfort. Wildflowers in carved cups, patterns woven into the new rushes on the floor, and the smell of different herbs in the cooking pot. One evening, as they sat by the fire after the day's work, Maren, the more outspoken of the twins, approached Dagmar tentatively. "Will you tell us a story?" she asked in her accented Norse. "Mother says your people have many tales of gods and heroes." Dagmar looked to Sorcha, who sat in the shadows, her hands busy with a spindle. She gave a small nod. "Very well," he said, motioning for the girls to sit. "I will tell you of Thor and how he recovered his hammer from the giant Thrall." As he recounted the tale, embellishing the parts that made the girls giggle, Thor dressed as a bride, Loki as his handmaiden. Dagmar caught Sorcha watching him, a reluctant smile playing at the corners of her mouth. When summer arrived, bringing with it the midnight sun, Dagmar took the twins fishing in the small stream that ran near the property. They showed surprising skill, explaining that they had often fished with their grandfather in the locks of their homeland. "Your daughters are clever," Dagmar told Sorcha that evening as they cleaned the day's catch. "They are," she agreed. "In our village, they would have trained with the wise women, learning of herbs and healing. Brianna already shows the gift. There is nothing to prevent them from learning such things here," Dagmar said. "The forest is full of herbs, and old Gyra in the village is skilled in healing arts. Perhaps she would teach them." Sorcha looked at him with suspicion. "Why would you care for their education? They are but thralls to you." Dagmar sighed. "I had a daughter once. She and my wife died in the great sickness 3 winters past. Perhaps I see something of her in your girls." Something in Sorcha's expression softened. "I am sorry for your loss. It is hard to lose those we love." "Yes," Dagmar agreed. "It leaves an emptiness that cannot be filled." The next day, Sorcha began showing her daughters the herbs that grew around the homestead, naming them in both her tongue and in Norse. Dagmar listened, realizing that many of the plants had healing properties he had never known. As summer waned and the harvest approached, word came from the village that raiders had returned from the Western Isles with great wealth. A feast would be held in the mead hall to celebrate their success. "You will attend?" Sorcha asked as Dagmar prepared his finest tunic. "I must." To refuse would be seen as an insult to the Jarl. He hesitated. "While I am gone, stay close to the homestead. Some of the returning warriors may wander this way, seeking entertainment." Fear flashed in Sorcha's eyes. "We will bolt the door and remain silent." The feast was as Dagmar remembered from his younger days. Loud, boisterous, with mead flowing freely and skalds singing of brave deeds. Warriors boasted of their conquests, both in battle and in the bedchambers of foreign women. Dagmar sat quietly, drinking little and speaking less. Yngling, called Steiner, a warrior Dagmar had once fought alongside. "Why so solemn? Have you forgotten how to celebrate victory?" "I celebrate in my own way," Dagmar replied. "My farming gives me all the battle I need these days." Steiner laughed. "Farming, and that Celtic thrall of yours. Word has spread of the fire-haired beauty you purchased at Spring Market. Does she warm your bed, as well as tend your fields?" Dagmar felt his hand tighten around his drinking horn. "She is a capable worker, nothing more." "Then you are wasting good silver," another warrior called. "Celtic women are wild in the furs, or so I've found. Perhaps I should offer to buy her from you, since you make no proper use of her." "She is not for sale," Dagmar said, his voice low but firm. "Nor are her daughters." The warriors exchanged knowing glances, but the Jarl's arrival silenced further discussion. As gifts were presented to the chieftain, silver, amber, foreign treasures, Dagmar found his thoughts returning to his homestead, to Sorcha and the twins. He left the feast earlier than would be deemed polite, claiming the need to check his livestock. The night was clear, stars shining brightly above the path that led to his farm. As he approached, He saw a light still burning in the longhouse window. Inside, he found Sorcha sitting by the fire, working on a small wooden figure with a knife. The twins slept peacefully in their corner. "You did not need to wait up," Dagmar said, removing his cloak. "I could not sleep," she replied. "Not until you returned." "You feared I would bring drunken warriors to the house?" he asked, somewhat hurt by her lack of trust. Sorcha met his gaze steadily. "No, I feared they would come without you here to stop them." Dagmar nodded, understanding her concern. "No one will harm you or your daughters while I draw breath. This I swear." "Why?" she asked, setting aside her carving. "Why do you protect us?" "We are just thralls, purchases made on a whim." Dagmar sat heavily on the bench opposite her. "When I was a younger man, I raided the western shores. I took lives, burned homes, carried off wealth and women. I told myself it was the way of our people, that the gods favored the bold." He stared into the flames. "In my last raid, we came upon a small settlement. The men fought bravely but were outnumbered. There was a woman, not unlike you, with a child. She begged for mercy, not for herself but for her daughter. My comrades showed none." Sorcha's face had gone pale. "And you? Did you show mercy?" "I did nothing," Dagmar admitted, shame evident in his voice. "I neither participated nor stopped it. After we returned home, I put away my weapons and vowed never to raid again. I cannot undo what I have done or what I failed to prevent. But I can choose a different path now." They sat in silence for a long moment, the fire crackling between them. "I understand," Sorcha finally said. "In my faith, we believe that even the greatest sins can be forgiven if one truly repents and changes their ways. Your Christian God is more merciful than our Asir, then," Dagmar observed. "Perhaps, or perhaps all gods understand the capacity for change in human hearts." Sorcha rose, gathering her carving. "Rest well, Dagmar Yngling. Tomorrow brings more work." As autumn painted the landscape in reds and golds, Dagmar noticed a change in his relationship with Sorcha. The rigid formality between them had softened into something like friendship. She no longer flinched when he came near, and he found himself seeking her counsel on matters of the farm and household. The twins had blossomed under the northern sun, their Norse improving daily as they chattered with neighboring children. Brianna, the quieter of the two, had indeed shown a gift for healing, correctly identifying herbs that would reduce fever when the neighbor's son fell ill. It was during the harvest that Dagmar realized his feelings for Sorcha had grown beyond mere appreciation for her skills. She was working in the field, her red hair gleaming in the sunlight, laughing at something Marin had said. The sight struck him with such force that he had to steady himself against a fence post. That evening, as they sat shelling beans by the fire, Dagmar found himself watching Sorcha's hands, strong yet graceful, marked by both her homeland and her new life here. "You're staring," she said without looking up. "Forgive me," he replied. "I was thinking how much has changed since spring market." "Indeed," she agreed. "My daughters no longer fear this place. They speak your language, know your gods. Sometimes I worry they will forget where they came from." "And you?" Dagmar asked. "Have you forgotten?" Sorcha shook her head. "Never. I remember every stone of my village, every face of those lost. I remember the smell of peat fires and the sound of the sea against our shores. Do you hate me for being one of those who took you from your home?" She considered this. "At first, yes. I hated all of your kind. But hatred is a heavy burden to carry, and you have been, not what I expected." Their conversation was interrupted by a knock at the door, unusual at this late hour. Dagmar rose cautiously, hand moving instinctively to where his sword once hung. At the door stood Steiner and two other warriors from the summer raids, clearly deep in their cups. "Yngling," Steiner boomed, "we thought to honor your homestead with a visit. Where is this Celtic beauty we hear so much about?" Behind him, Dagmar sensed Sorcha gathering the twins and retreating to the far end of the longhouse. "It is late," Dagmar said firmly. "My household is preparing for sleep. Perhaps you could visit another time." Steiner's face darkened. "Since when does a farmer refuse hospitality to warriors?" "Stand aside, Yngling. We've brought mead to share, and wish only to see if the tales of your thrall's beauty are true." "She is not for your entertainment," Dagmar replied, blocking the doorway. "Nor are her children." "Children?" One of the other warriors slurred. "The thrall has young ones. Are they yours, Yngling? Have you been breeding with your property? Dagmar felt a cold rage build within him. Leave now, before words are spoken that cannot be taken back. Steiner stepped closer, the smell of mead heavy on his breath. You've grown soft, Yngling. Time was you would have shared your spoils with your shield brothers. Those days are past, Dagmar said, as is your welcome here. For a tense moment, Dagmar thought Steiner might challenge him. Instead, the warrior spat on the ground. Keep your thrall, he sneered. But remember this, the Jarl frowns on those who forget their place. A farmer with ideas above his station might find himself without the Jarl's protection when needed. After they had gone, Dagmar secured the door and returned to the fire. Sorcha emerged from the shadows, her face pale but composed. They will be back, she said quietly. Perhaps, Dagmar agreed. But not tonight. That night, Dagmar slept fitfully, haunted by dreams of his raiding days mingled with images of Sorcha and her daughters in danger. He awoke before dawn, a decision crystallizing in his mind. As Sorcha kindled the morning fire, Dagmar approached her with resolve. I wish to remove your thrall collar, he said without preamble. You and your daughters are no longer bound to me. Sorcha's hand stilled. What game is this? No game, Dagmar replied. I should have done this months ago. You have more than earned your freedom. Suspicion clouded her features. And what would you have us do with this freedom? Where would we go? That is for you to decide, Dagmar said, though the thought of them leaving tightened his chest. You could return to your homeland, if that is your wish. I have silver saved that would pay for passage. Sorcha stood, studying his face. Why now? Because I can no longer pretend that you are my property, when in truth. He hesitated, searching for words. In truth, it is I who have become bound to you. Understanding dawned in her eyes. Dagmar, you need not speak, he interrupted. I ask nothing of you. Your freedom comes with no conditions. With gentle hands, he removed the iron collar that marked her as a thrall. It had been largely symbolic for months now, never locked, but its removal felt momentous nonetheless. There, he said, setting the collar aside. You are free to choose your own path. Sorcha rubbed her neck, her expression unreadable. And if my path were to remain here? Dagmar looked up sharply. You would stay? Even after all that has happened to you at the hands of my people? Not all your people, she corrected. Just as not all my people are the same. I have learned that men must be judged by their own actions, not by the deeds of those who share their blood. She took a step toward him. My daughters are happy here. They have food, shelter, and safety. They are learning things I could not teach them alone. And you? Dagmar asked, hardly daring to hope. Could you be happy here? With me? Instead of answering, Sorcha closed the distance between them and placed her hand against his cheek. The gesture, so simple yet intimate, made Dagmar's heart race. I already am, she whispered. Their first kiss was tentative, a question asked and answered in the quiet of the morning light. When they parted, Dagmar saw in Sorcha's eyes not submission or fear, but a strength that matched his own. If we are to build a life together, she said, it must be as equals. Not Norse and Celt, not former master and thrall, but man and woman. Nothing would please me more, Dagmar agreed. But there will be challenges. The Jarl, the village, they may not understand. Then we will help them understand, she replied with determination. Or we will find a place where we can live according to our own hearts. The twins, awakened by their voices, emerged from their sleeping area. Seeing their mother in Dagmar's embrace, they approached cautiously. Are we leaving? Brianna asked, her small face concerned. Sorcha knelt before her daughters. No, little ones. We are staying, if that is what you wish. But things will be different now. I am no longer a thrall, and Dagmar wishes us to be his family. Maren looked up at Dagmar with solemn eyes. Does that mean you will be our father now? Dagmar felt his throat tighten with emotion. If you would have me, yes. I would be honored to be your father. The girls exchanged glances, having one of those silent conversations that only twins seem capable of. Then, with the simple acceptance of children, they nodded. Good, Maren declared. You tell better stories than mother. Sorcha laughed, the sound bright in the morning air. Impertinent child. As they prepared the morning meal together, Dagmar felt a contentment he had not known since before his wife's death. Yet he knew that their path forward would not be easy. Mixed marriages between Norse and foreigners were not unheard of, but a free union between a Viking farmer and a former Celtic thrall would raise eyebrows, if not outright opposition. The first test came sooner than expected. That afternoon, as Dagmar worked in the fields with Sorcha, a group approached from the village, the Jarl himself, accompanied by Steiner and several other warriors. "Stay behind me," Dagmar murmured to Sorcha, who had gone rigid at the sight of the approaching men. "Dagmar Yngling," the Jarl called as they drew near. "It seems you have caused quite a stir in my hall this morning." Dagmar bowed respectfully. "Jarl Hakon, you honor my humble farm with your presence." The Jarl, a bear-like man with a graying beard, gestured to Sorcha. "Is this the thrall I've heard so much about? The one you refuse to share or sell?" "This is Sorcha Galloway," Dagmar replied, emphasizing her name. "She is no longer a thrall. I have granted her freedom." Murmurs ran through the warriors. The Jarl's eyebrows rose. "Indeed? And what prompted such generosity?" "She has earned it through her service," Dagmar said. "And I wish to take her as my wife, if she will have me." Steiner spat on the ground. "Madness. Taking a foreign thrall as wife? What next, Yngling? Will you adopt their weak god and forsake the Aesir?" "Enough, Steiner," the Jarl commanded. Then to Dagmar, "You were once one of my finest warriors. Your counsel was valued, your sword arm feared. Now you till the soil and speak of marrying a woman taken in raid. Explain yourself." Dagmar squared his shoulders. "I have changed, Jarl Hakon. The path of the warrior no longer calls to me. I have found honor in providing for my household, in watching things grow rather than destroying them." "And this woman?" the Jarl asked, studying Sorcha with shrewd eyes. "Does she bewitch you with Celtic magic?" To Dagmar's surprise, Sorcha stepped forward, head high. "I practice no magic, Jarl Hakon. I am simply a woman who has found unexpected kindness in a foreign land. Dagmar Yngling has treated me and my daughters with honor when he could have done otherwise. For that, he has earned my respect and my heart." The Jarl considered her for a long moment. "You speak our tongue well, Celtic woman." "I have had good teachers," she replied, glancing at Dagmar. "And if I were to forbid this union?" the Jarl asked. "If I were to declare that Dagmar Yngling has forgotten his place and his people?" Dagmar tensed, prepared to defend his choice, but Sorcha spoke first. "Then we would regret the loss of our home and community," she said calmly. "But we would find another place. Love is not easily uprooted once it has taken hold." A surprised bark of laughter escaped the Jarl. "By Thor's hammer, she has spirit." "Perhaps that is what drew you to her, Yngling." "Among many qualities," Dagmar agreed cautiously. The Jarl stroked his beard thoughtfully. "The old ways are changing. Trade brings us into contact with foreign lands and ideas. Some of our people have even adopted the White Christ in distant settlements." He glanced at Steiner, who looked mutinous. "There are those who resist such changes, who see only weakness in adapting." "And you, Jarl Hakon?" Dagmar asked. "What do you see?" "I see a man who once served me well, who now wishes to forge a different path." The Jarl's gaze moved to Sorcha. "And I see a woman of courage who speaks to a Jarl as an equal. That is either great folly or great strength." He was silent for a moment, then nodded decisively. "The match is unusual, but not without precedent. If you truly wish to take this woman as wife, Dagmar Yngling, I will not forbid it. But know this, she must become one of our people in truth. Your children will be raised in our ways, honoring our gods alongside whatever gods she brings with her." Relief flooded Dagmar. "Thank you, Jarl Hakon. Your wisdom is as renowned as your courage." The Jarl waved away the praise. "I expect to see you both at the Harvest Festival. It will be a good opportunity for the village to become accustomed to your unusual family." As the Jarl and his men departed, Steiner lingered, his face dark with displeasure. "You dishonor our people with this choice, Yngling." "I honor my heart," Dagmar replied evenly, "as all men should." Steiner spat again. "We shall see how long your heart sustains you when winter comes and the village turns its back on your foreign bride." After he had gone, Sorcha turned to Dagmar. "He will make trouble for us." "Likely," Dagmar agreed. "But the Jarl's word carries weight. If he accepts our union, most will follow his lead. And those who don't." Dagmar took her hands in his. "Then we face them together, as equals." Their marriage took place at the Harvest Festival, combining Norse traditions with elements of Sorcha's Celtic heritage. She wore a crown of autumn leaves and berries, while Dagmar donned his finest tunic and the arm rings from his warrior days. The twins, dressed in new woolen dresses dyed with woad to match their mothers, scattered wildflower petals before the bride. Not everyone approved. There were whispers and dark looks from some quarters, but the Jarl's presence and blessing silenced the most vocal opposition. When Dagmar and Sorcha exchanged swords and rings, symbolizing their commitment to protect and provide for each other, even some of the skeptics were moved by the evident love between them. The winter that followed tested their new family as all northern winters do, with bitter cold, howling winds, and the challenge of preserving both food and hope until spring's return. Yet within their longhouse, warmth prevailed. Sorcha taught the girls the songs and stories of her homeland, while Dagmar carved wooden figures of both Norse gods and Celtic heroes for them to play with. On the longest night of winter, as a blizzard raged outside, Sorcha placed a bundle in Dagmar's arms, a tiny son, born as the old year prepared to give way to the new. "What shall we name him?" Dagmar asked, marveling at the perfect, tiny face. "In my tradition, he would be named for his grandfather," Sorcha said. "But perhaps a Norse name would be fitting, to honor your ancestors?" "Let us give him both," Dagmar suggested. "A name that bridges our worlds, just as he does." And so the child was named Ronan Dagson, a Celtic first name with a Norse patronymic. The twins, now 7 winters old, were enchanted with their little brother, taking turns holding him and singing the lullabies of 2 cultures. As winter gradually loosened its grip and the first signs of spring appeared, Dagmar found Sorcha standing outside their longhouse, gazing at the distant hills where the snow had begun to melt. "What are you thinking?" he asked, wrapping his arms around her from behind. "That life takes unexpected turns," she replied, leaning back against him. 3 years ago, I could not have imagined standing here, with you, our children sleeping safely inside. Do you regret any of it?" Dagmar asked, the question that sometimes still haunted him in the quiet hours. Sorcha turned in his arms to face him. "I regret the loss of my homeland, the people who died in the raids. I regret that my daughters will grow up far from their grandparents' graves." She placed a hand on his cheek. "But I do not regret finding you, Dagmar Yngling. In you, I found not an enemy, but a man striving to be better than his past. And I found in you the courage I had lost," he replied. "The strength to stand against expectation and choose a different path." Their kiss was interrupted by Marin's voice from the doorway. "Mother, father, Ronan is awake and hungry." "Coming, little one," Sorcha called, smiling up at Dagmar. "Duty calls." "Indeed it does," he agreed, taking her hand. "Let us answer it together." As they returned to their home, not a Norse longhouse nor a Celtic roundhouse, but something uniquely their own, Dagmar reflected on the strange journey that had brought them to this moment. From warrior to farmer, from thrall to wife, from enemies to lovers, their story defied the expectations of both their peoples. Yet in that defiance lay their strength. Like the first green shoots pushing through the melting snow, their love had found a way to flourish in seemingly hostile ground. And in doing so, they had created something new, a family bound not by blood or tradition, but by choice and by love. In the years that followed, their homestead became known throughout the region as a place where differences were celebrated rather than feared. The twins grew into beautiful young women, skilled in both Norse and Celtic healing traditions. Ronan and the siblings who followed him learned to navigate both worlds, carrying forward the legacy their parents had begun. And if sometimes, on quiet evenings, Sorcha's eyes grew distant with memories of green hills and peat fires, Dagmar would take her hand and remind her that home was not always the place where one began, but sometimes the place where one's heart finally came to rest.